name is Maddie, and you are watching True Summer Knits. I'm a knitter based out of Mississippi, and knitting is pretty much all I do. So I just come here and I talk about it. Today we are going to be talking all about my winter knitting plans. Now, this is the first winter I've actually been knitting. I started knitting December of last year. And I've only made one seasonal planning video so far, and it was my fall seasonal planning. And that video, I don't know, I didn't actually really make plans then, I think. I think I thought I was, but it was really more of just the things I kind of wanted to knit. I hadn't really had yarn picked out for anything. I didn't know for sure if I was going to be knitting them. It was just thoughts. It was very, nebulous. But this time, pretty much everything in my queue, I have the yarn for. Some things I've swatched for, and I pretty much know what order I'm going to knit them in. So these are concrete plans. So maybe I'll change my mind on the patterns, but probably not, and I have the yarn for pretty much everything I'm going to talk about. So we're just going to get started. The first thing I'm going to be working on is going to be my next cast on after I finish my tulip loop sweater, which I'm literally on the ribbing of the last sleeve. I've done everything else, so that'll be done probably today or tonight. I want to cast on this. This is KnitPicks palette in silver and KnitPicks aloft in plover. So this is just a fingering weight wool and a mohair combination. And what I'm going to do with these is I'm going to cast on the Winter Clutch by Petit Knit. This is a super cute pattern. I talked about it in my Christmas video, and I mentioned that I bought the yarn for it. I'm not usually into knitted bags. I mean, if I am, I think it'd be more of a lace tote bag situation, but I saw this and I just had to have it. I love that kind of vintage doctor's bag style bag that Petit Knit does. And this was my favorite one. I think she's got one also that's stockinette, but I like the texture one better. And I picked these colors because I thought it would give it more dimension to show the texture if I had a darker gray and a lighter gray. And it really does make it look like silver. I don't know if I'm gonna have to insert photos to really show you this swatch, but it's the lightness of the mohair and on the ridges of the texture really gives it dimension, and it's just so beautiful and soft and fuzzy. I have said this before, and I will say it again. The KnitPicks mohair is the best mohair I've ever tried. Beats Knitting for Olive. That's pretty much the only one I've tried other than Drops, but it is much softer and much fluffier than Knitting for Olive. It literally almost feels like a suri alpaca with how dense the fluff is. I even gave River a blind test last night to see which he thought was softer. So he felt the Knitting for Olive, and then he felt this one, and he didn't know which was which, and he picked this one. He was like, oh yeah, this is way softer. I just wish they had better colors. They have, some colors that I like, but mostly they just have a lot of really bright colors, and then just a couple neutrals. Now, I'm not a neutral only person, but I just don't like super bright colors. I wish they had, some softer blues, softer pinks, purples, greens, instead of just very bright ones that they have. But they have this gray, and I might end up making a sweater with this one day, or their white or beige, just because I love this mohair so much. But that's a tangent. A lot of people on Ravelry also use a strand of wool and a strand of mohair. So that is going to be my next cast on. It's knit bottom up, and I also have all the hardware. So I wanted to tell you, if you want to knit this bag, you don't have to buy the hardware from Petit Knit. I mean, you can if you want to, but I will put the links in my description of what I bought off Amazon for mine. I'll show you. Jackson is walking carefully over all the piles of yarn I have. So this is loud, but this is the frame. So she does give you the dimensions of the frame in the pattern. So I just went on Amazon to see if I could find a frame that size, and I did. It's a silver frame. It's pretty much exactly like the one that she has, and it came with two. So that means I can make another one in the future if I want to. Might make it a more bright one, a more fun colored one, So I got the frame. I got this multi-pack of O-rings. There wasn't I couldn't just buy one. I'm gonna want the smallest ones, of course, but I don't know what I'm gonna do with the bigger ones. But they've got at least 2 sets of the small ones. So again, I have this stuff for another purse. And all this was super cheap too. And then, what's in here? Oh, that's something different. And then the only other thing I needed was the chain. I got one that's like about a meter or whatever the equivalent of that is in inches. That's how I looked it up. But it's just a silver chain. You could buy them in gold or rose gold or whatever you want. And so I got that all for super cheap on Amazon because it would have been expensive to buy it from Petit Knit, and I don't know how long shipping would have taken. I don't know, but I'll put the links for that hardware if you want to knit this so that you don't have to buy it from Petit Knit. But that's that on the winter clutch. That is going to be my next cast on, although I do have to work on my mother-in-law's scarf, so I'm going to try to get some of that done before I cast this on. But then the next thing what I plan on casting on is a stockinette project. I plan on, after I finish the winter clutch and my mother-in-law's scarf, I plan on having a more textured project on the needles and a stockinette project on the needles. And this is actually one of my only stockinette projects in my whole queue. And this is going to be a cheaper project because this is Drops Lima. I bought 12 of these, and I bought 6 balls of Drops Air, and I think I only spent $57, including shipping. So, very cheap. What I plan on knitting with this is the Eva cardigan. I really need more cardigans. I've got this one and another one in my queue, but this is, I feel like this will go with everything in my wardrobe. I don't know how it's showing up on camera, but it's called taupe gray. I think it's called taupe gray. It's color 5310. I remember it being called taupe gray. And in some lightings, it literally just comes off as gray, but it's just very, very gray brown. Like, it's a gray with just a hint of brown. It's a perfect color for me. I've got a kind of like blazer type jacket that's in a similar color. It's a little bit warmer and it goes with everything. So this is super cool, and I think it'll just be perfect for my wardrobe with an Eva cardigan. What I really love about the Eva cardigan is the 2x2 ribbing on the button band and hems and everything. I am not normally a 2x2 ribbing person, but if it wasn't for the 2x2 ribbing, I just don't think I would even pick this pattern. Like, I mean, it's got a normal type of fit. I really like the V-neck, but the big chunks of 2x2 ribbing are what's really sold it for me. And obviously it's a DK weight project. This is a DK weight yarn. Hers is knitted in pure Gint, but this will work just great. The gauge is 20 stitches by 30 rows, and it's a contiguous type shoulder construction. It kind of looks like a saddle shoulder, but some saddle shoulders you pick up or you do like a provisional cast on at the end, so the saddle is seamless. But in this one, it seems more like the saddle is kind of just like a block, and then it's got a diagonal line at the back that is where you're shaping the shoulder, I'm imagining. So it's very similar. It looks very similar to me as the shoulder in her poppy tee. I don't know if they're the same, but it looks very similar to that one, I feel like. I plan on knitting the extra small, I think, or maybe the small. I'm not sure. I don't want it to be too oversized, but I feel like this one already has a lot of ease built in. So I feel like the extra small might be good for me. I do want it to be big enough that I can get it over most of my tops, like obviously not my big sweaters, but I don't want to be too big that I feel like I'm drowning in it. I also don't know if I'm going to crop it. Isn't Petit Knit tall? It comes to like right at her actual hip, I think, in her sample and her photos. And I think that sounds like a good idea for me, but I think I'm shorter than Petit Knit. So I bought 12 balls of it, but I'm not sure if I'm actually going to need 12 balls of it. I guess if I have extra, I might make like a matching hat or something. I'm not really a hat person, but yeah, so that's probably going to be my next cast on because I feel like I really want a cardigan while the weather is still cooling down. Because some days it's a lot cooler, but we're still kind of in a transitional period. Things don't really start becoming winter until like January and February. So I want to get the cardigan done so that I can have that to wear and still be working on my bigger, warmer projects. Then the project that I want to work on somewhat side by side with my Eva cardigan is the Shantal sweater. If you watched my vlog last week, and by the way, I don't know if I'm continuing Vlogmas, when I'm not on a trip, I realize I don't have that much to show, but regardless, if you saw that vlog, I showed 2 sweater quantities worth of yarn that I bought, and this is one of them, and both of them are like very similar. When I bought this set that I'm about to show you, I thought it was kind of more gray, and it does have gray to it, but it's more blue than I thought it would be. In the store, it looked gray, but I still really like the color combination. These are 2 yarns that I've never tried, and I'm super excited to try it. The first one is rarum natura albertine, and it really is like a very, very soft blue. Like it's just got the tiniest hint of blue to it. Some lights it just looks gray. Some lights it looks like a baby blue. It's hard to tell. The shade is in petit matin, which I think that means like morning hour or morning light or something. And it's 90% wool, 10% silk. So it's very soft. It's got like very much like a plumpness to it. I feel like it's a little bit thicker than the knitting for olive, just barely. And it's a little plumper than the knitting for olive. I feel like the knitting for olive is spun a little tighter. I could be making that up, but just based on my first impressions, that's how it feels. This ball is 50 grams, you get 200 meters, and it's just like a fingering weight, like a light fingering weight type yarn. Then I'm going to pair it with fyberspates cumulus. Both of the sweater quantities I got are both held with suri alpaca because I am not like sensitive to mohair. I can wear it, but I do feel like if I have a softer option, I'd prefer that. And I've wanted to try this. I did not expect them to have this. The only place I know where I could get it before was Wool Warehouse and Woolen Company. So I saw this, and this is actually the color I started out with before I picked out the rarum natura. I saw this, it was like a very slight bluish green gray. The color is silver green, and I feel like I might have to put in pictures to show you because the sun's not fully facing me, but it's just like a very grayish blue. Again, in some lights it looks gray, in some lights it looks blue. So held together, I think this is going to be a really beautiful combination, really soft. And I want to knit the Shantal sweater with this. I think it's definitely going to take some swatching because this is like a slightly thicker than a knitting for olive, and this is slightly thicker than like a regular mohair. And the slip stitch pattern is can be very compressed, if that makes sense. So I'm going to do some swatching to see what needle size I need to knit it on. But I'll give you some details on the Shantal sweater. I have loved this sweater for a long time, and I was debating between the V-neck and the crew neck, or like the regular sweater, but I ended up deciding on the regular because the V-neck would end up looking a lot like my Paul sweater, I feel like, and I just wanted a crew neck sweater instead that's in a more neutral color like this. But it's this all-over slip stitch pattern. It is beautiful. There's really not much other words to describe it. The slip stitch pattern just makes it kind of look from far away like it's a rib, like a very delicate rib, but it also looks like it's all stockinette. I'm obsessed with it. Ever since I saw it, I've been obsessed with it. So she knits hers in Kid Seta and Wild and Soft by Cardigan, which is their fingering weight merino and soft silk mohair held together. She's sneezing back there. So the weight is a sport weight, and so that's why I'm thinking I might have to knit this at a little bit of a tighter gauge or a tighter needle than she says. She recommends a 4.5 and a 3mm needle for the ribbing. I'm gonna feel like I'm probably gonna end up knitting this with like a 4. Well, I've been knitting tighter, so I don't know. I feel like a 4 or maybe even a 4.5. I don't know. That's why I have to do swatching because I'm really not sure with the kind of different variables that this yarn has than like the knitting for olive combo that I'm used to. But it is a sport weight gauge. The gauge is 26 stitches and 40 rows, but that's in the slip stitch pattern, I'm assuming. This is also a saddle shoulder, similar to her Paul sweater that I knit before. It's a drop sleeve, it's top down. The crew neck also looks like it's done in 2x2 rib or maybe 2x1 rib. So clearly I'm into that right now. I'm really feeling the 2x2 rib. I don't know why. The construction's a little different because when you start, you actually start by knitting the two shoulders separately, the two front shoulders separately, and then you knit the front, or like the beginning of the front, and then you pick up and knit the back. I'm used to drop shoulders, or, you start with the back, you knit up, and then you pick up for the shoulders, but this is a little different. You use short rows on both the front and the back for the sloping of the shoulders, and then you join everything in the round, you knit the sleeves, and she does confirm that the neckline is 2x2 rib. So I think this is going to be a really interesting construction. It's a saddle shoulder. Clearly she does it differently than like other saddle shoulder constructions that I'm used to, and I'm just so excited to knit this. Again, I think I'm going to knit the extra small because I like the relaxed fit, but I don't want it to be too relaxed. But it goes up to a 3XL. The sizing is meant to fit a natural bust measurement of 31.5 inches to 51.5 inches. So, good size range. But yeah, that will be my cast on that I knit with the Eva cardigan. So I cannot wait. I'm just so ready to be done with the tulip loop sweater and the scarf so I can get those on the needles. The next project in my queue, although I don't know if it's actually going to be the next project I knit. I have all these projects that I know for sure I'm going to knit, but I'm not 100% sure on the order. But this is the other set of yarn that I got from the yarn store in Dallas. And similar colors, but much more obviously blue. So this is Old Faithful, knitting for olive merino in the shade soft blue. Really pretty. It's much bluer than the cotton merino version that I knit with before. That one had a bit more green in it. This one is much more just like a mid-tone blue. Then I debated for a long time in the store of what I was going to hold together with it. But I ended up getting, of course, the Suri alpaca, the Camellia Fiber Co. in the shade Blue Poppy. And now that I'm here, feeling-wise, it's hard to say which is softer. I really feel like they feel very similar. This might feel a little bit softer just touching it with my hands. But again, I haven't knit up a swatch for either of these, so maybe I'll report back. But obviously this is a much more expensive version. This is like one of those fancy brands. But this comes in 25 gram balls, and this comes in a 50 gram hank. So really, this one's not that much more expensive when you do the math. This is $33 for 50 grams, and this is $10.50 for 25 grams. So this would be about $16.50 per 25 grams, so about $6 more than this. But I plan on holding these together to knit a Jenny jacket v-neck. I actually did a swatch for it, but then I unraveled it because I thought I was going to go ahead and cast it on, and also because I don't think I hit gauge. It was kind of hard to measure gauge for this jacket, and I really don't want to screw it up. So I'm going to do a few different gauge swatches because I don't know. With things that are not stockinette, I feel like I really struggle to measure my gauge. I'm just never sure like where you're supposed to measure. I don't know. It felt like my swatch, I think, was too big when I was knitting it, but I really think that this combination is going to be beautiful for the Jenny jacket v-neck. It almost gives it like a slight sea green to it, and I wish I'd kept the swatch so I could at least show you the fabric, but it looked so beautiful. And definitely it's going to be more of a statement piece because of the color and the smock stitch, but I still think with my wardrobe, I could still go with a lot of just like neutral, like navies or lighter neutrals in my wardrobe. So I'm super excited to knit that. Even just knitting the swatch was fun. Like the smock stitch pattern, way simpler than I thought it was going to be. It's really mostly just knitting stockinette, and then you just do like this little loop that you pull over to smock the stitches together. And it's super fun, it looks beautiful, and I'm super excited. This is knit bottom up though, which is interesting. I've not done that before, at least not for like a big garment like that. Wait, no, I'm sorry. I also have the pattern for the Jenny sweater, and that's knit bottom up, but this is knit top down. So that makes more sense. I don't know why this is knit top down while the sweater is knit bottom up. Because originally I planned on knitting the sweater, but I just always thought that the Jenny jacket kind of makes more of a statement, and I really like it more than the Jenny sweater. But she calls it a worsted weight gauge, and I ended up getting a fingering weight in a suri because the recommended yarn she uses is tin pure gint and a mohair, which is a fingering weight and a mohair, but she says the weight is worsted. I'm not really sure why. I don't know that I understand that, because every yarn that she recommends is just a fingering weight and a mohair held together, but it's worked similar to like a drop shoulder. You start with the back neck, you're working short rows to shape the shoulders. Obviously it's knit flat because it's a jacket, but this is a pattern that's easy to knit flat. I didn't feel like it was complicated or anything. But then after you knit the cardigan, it's just finished with a double knit button band, which looks super nice on this. As for buttons, I think I'm going to try to just get some like very light pearl buttons. Those are pretty easy to find, like pearlescent not like actual little pearls. And I think that'll look really cute with this light blue Jenny jacket. I'm super excited for this one. I know this is going to be more of a long-term project, because even though the pattern is easy, obviously anything with that much texture is going to take longer, but I don't care. I think I'm going to have a ton of fun working on this project. The next project is, I have a pattern picked out for it. I'm not 100% confident that this is a pattern I'm going to use for this yarn, but I mentioned earlier that I got 6 balls of Drops Air, and this is definitely the most vibrant color that I have plans for. I really like it. I think it's going to look really good with me. I definitely feel like darker, muted, cool colors are better for me, but I've been mostly knitting with lighter neutrals or lighter muted colors, so I'm really excited to knit with this. This is in the shade Heather. I'm really excited to knit with this blown type of yarn because it's thicker, so it's worked up faster, but it's still kind of lightweight and airy because obviously of how lightweight the blown yarn is. So my plan for this right now is the Cloud Sweater by Petit Knit. Obviously I've got a lot of Petit Knit. She's got really good basics, and I haven't been knitting in a winter before, so I really like starting with her patterns for just building up a winter wardrobe. So that's what I have planned, but then I don't know if I like the way the rolled neck looks on the Cloud Sweater, and then I feel like if I take away the rolled neck, I feel like it's not really a cloud sweater anymore. So I've been looking at some other patterns. Let me see if I can find some of the others that I was thinking about. I was thinking about maybe not doing a stockinette and doing something with some texture or like some cables. Let me see if I can I'm trying to figure out what other ones I was thinking of. I put up a post on my story asking for recommendations, and I got some good ones. And of course now Instagram won't show me what people said, so I don't know, but there's the Turtle Dove sweater, which is nice. That's just another nice stockinette pattern. A lot of people were recommending the Berlin scarf, but I know I want to garment in this. I could knit sweater number 18 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. I'd have to do swatches because I don't know how the texture would look. But there were some, let me look at I've been looking at the projects that people have actually made with it, because it gives me a better view than just looking at projects that are recommended and might not be knit in that yarn already. That's another thing. When I look at the project pages, I don't really like people's versions of the Cloud Sweater that they knit. There aren't really many that I look at and I'm like, oh, that looks good. Not trying to be mean, just, I don't know, that's another thing that's like turning me off from knitting the Cloud Sweater. People recommended the Winnie Sweater by Woozy by Celine. I still don't know if I love that one, just for me. One that I really liked, I saw someone knit the Irish Rover Pullover by Teddy Lutzak, and it looked so good, and I feel like I really like that one. But they held it with another yarn, so I don't know if I'd have enough yarn. I don't know. I'd have to check. I don't know. I can't really find any others that I like, so I guess it's really between those. But if you have any other ideas what I could knit with it that's like a sweater, let me know, because I don't know. I'm not really sold on either one yet. The next project I have half the yarn for. The other half is coming in the mail. I've got 3 balls of Knitting for Olive merino in the shade Dusty Aqua, and I bought this like months ago, planning to knit like a camisole with it, and I just never did. And then I saw Emily from High Fiber Knits wearing the Conwi slipover, and I also saw Knit Pro Girl wearing it on her podcast. And I wasn't normally a slipover person, but then I was kind of looking at it as like a top, and I was just obsessed with it. Did I put that on my queue? Oh, another sweater I was looking at for the Drops Air was the Snow Crocus by Midori High Rose. That's another possible for the Drops Air. I feel like it would look really good with Drops Air, but I would definitely modify the sleeves. I don't really like. Anyway, back to the Dusty Aqua. So the Conwi slipover is another one that's meant to be knit with a fingering weight and a mohair, and so I was like, okay, I've had this for a long time, so, when you've had yarn for a long time, it's basically free. So I was like, all I have to do is buy three balls of something to hold with it, and I could have done the mohair. Something I've always wanted to try is the Knitting for Olive compatible cashmere, and I had a gift card for Knitting for Olive, and since I only had to buy those, I decided to buy 3 balls of the Knitting for Olive compatible cashmere. It's in the mail, so I don't have it yet, but this will be a quicker project because it's sleeveless, so I definitely want to knit this soon because I really like it. I feel like it's going to look so good in this color, and with the cashmere, I've always wanted to try their compatible cashmere. I think it's going to create just such a nice fabric one that I'm probably going to end up liking way too much, and that's going to be very dangerous for my wallet, because if I really like it, it would be really expensive to buy a full sweater quantity like needed for the compatible cashmere and the merino. But I'm glad I get to knit this with it. The Conwi slipover is just, I feel like the picture of it on the hanger does not do it justice. Like, you have to see it worn. It drapes really nicely, like off the shoulders, like makes it kind of look like it's got like the cap sleeves. It reminds me of like the way this drapes in front of the shoulders, and it's really simple. It's just she's got this one cable down the middle. I just think it's super beautiful, and I am super excited to have this in my wardrobe. This is knit on 4mm needles, which the gauge is 22 stitches, so I know I'm definitely going to have to go up in needle size because I have been having to go up for everything lately, but that is one that I'm super excited about. I've only got a couple projects left on my queue. One project that is on my queue that I don't have yarn for, or I might have yarn for, but I've got that yarn planned for something else, is the Anais tee by Gregoria Fibers. If I knit this, I would knit it with 2 strands of Knitting for Olive merino held together, and I do technically have 5 balls of the Knitting for Olive merino in unicorn purple, but currently my plans for this are the Antoinette blouse, which is a pattern from 1937 that I really love, that I have modified to knit top down and in the round, and I was going to do a whole video knitting that, and I think I prefer that to this, but just in case, I could knit the Anais tee with it, or I could just buy more balls to knit it with. I think I still would only need like 5, but it's a really beautiful tee, and I feel like I could even knit it in like a cotton merino just so it can carry me somewhat into the spring or the slightly warmer seasons, because this is one of my favorite designs by Gregoria Fibers. But it's going to be either that, but I think I'm going to knit the Antoinette blouse with this and film a whole video of me knitting it, because that is a really beautiful design. I also have the Portland Raglan dog sweater on my queue. I don't even know what I'm going to knit with this. I would want it to be something that's like soft so it doesn't irritate her, but I don't know. I am going to have like way too much of the Cascade BFL left over for my tulip loop sweater, and that would meet gauge, I think, but I don't know if that's like too rough for her, or if it would even matter for her because she is a dog and it has fur. I really don't know. I don't know if it would bother her, but I need something to do with all that leftover yarn, so that could be an option. Or I've got this like dark purple DK weight superwash that I'm never going to use because it's not the color I thought it was going to be. So I could knit that, but I definitely want to knit her a little sweater because she is chilly and we go on walks, and when it gets cold, I know she's going to be chilly, so I want to knit her a little sweater. Then I have the Shantal mittens on my queue. I have left over like 3 balls of the Cardiff Cashmere Classic in the shade Hashi from this top, the Kirby top. I've just noticed that there's been an end that I forgot to weave in, like hanging out this whole episode. I hope you guys don't think less of me. I will weave that in after this is over. But I've got 3 balls left of it. This one got kind of unraveled. So I want to knit some fingerless gloves because, again, when I take my dog out for a walk at night, my hand's cold, you know? So I'm probably going to knit fingerless mittens. So I've either got the Shantal mittens or the penny gloves. Theoretically, I could also knit a bralette with this, but I feel like even though a bralette is cute and I could maybe wear it to bed, I don't think there's anywhere else I would wear it, but I feel like I would actually use fingerless mittens, you know? So I can't decide if I want to do the Shantal mittens or the penny gloves, but of course I'm obsessed with the Shantal slip stitch design, but I also feel like if I was going to knit it, I kind of wish it would match my sweater, but obviously it's not going to. So one of those is going to get made with the leftover Cardiff Cashmere. That is all the yarn I have over there, and I feel like that's going to be pretty much everything I knit for the season. Those are a lot of plans, and it's possible I won't get everything done in time, and it's also possible that something else will inspire me and there'll be an extra cast on or 2, but generally I can knit something in 2 weeks, maybe even faster depending on what it is. So I definitely feel like it's possible for me to get all of this stuff done, but we'll have to see. So if you are interested in seeing all of this wonderful yarn being knit up and interested in hearing about the projects that I have to work on, then keep updated with my podcast. I definitely feel like my pattern roundups are more popular than my podcast, but I'm really starting to put a lot more work into my podcast, and I would love to have an audience for all this amazing stuff that I'm working on. But that's my winter plan. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, leave a like, comment, and of course, if you are not subscribed, please subscribe. And I will see you guys next week with another podcast episode. Bye!